Welcome back to Slaying the Craft, the show where we go inside the mind of a thriller writer. I'm Sabrina, your cheerleader with a knife book coach, podcaster, and author, but most of all, fanatic of the genre. I am so excited to introduce my guest today. Adam Plantinga has been in law enforcement for 23 years, 7 with the Milwaukee PD and 16 with San Francisco PD. He's the author of 2 nonfiction books about urban law enforcement. His debut novel, The Ascent, came out in January of 2024. It was a USA Today bestseller and optioned by Universal for television, which I literally cannot wait until this is on screen because it's made for screen. His second book, Hardtown, is second in the Kurt Argento series and is nominated for a 2026 Edgar for Best Novel, which is so unreal, like so exciting. And then the third book in the series, Dark Country, will be released in October. Welcome, Adam.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Sabrina.
Yeah, so excited for you to be here. Okay, well, so many things. First, I'm just going to start off with I'm a mega fan of The Ascent, like mega fan.
Thank you.
I've I just feel like I've talked about this book so many times. I think 2024 was in my like top 3 books of the year. It's so ridiculous. Like, and I mean that in the best way. It's
No,
like,
you're
it's just
absolutely
so
right. It is
over the
ridiculous.
top. So, where did you get the idea for it?
You know, I've always been drawn to stories where sort of a group of people, often sort of different kinds of folks, are thrown together in a tense situation, and then they have to get from point A to point B. You know, sort of overcoming impossible odds. So I wanted to write a book that was sort of like that, where the characters have to navigate like a violent obstacle course.
That's
So that's
exactly
what I
what I
set out
have
to
to
do.
do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
even stories like the Poseidon Adventure or Aliens, or I just yeah, I'm drawn to those stories. So I wanted to try my hand at one.
That is pretty amazing. For those who don't know, that story is Kurt Argento is a former cop, which we'll talk about that in a second. And he ends up locked in a maximum security tower prison with the governor's daughter over a weekend.
Yeah,
And
it's a
all of
tough
the
weekend.
stuff, huh?
It's a tough weekend.
It's a real tough weekend. And then as they ascend, they go the ascent to get to the top to escape. And the higher you go, the more violent and more like terrifying the crime, like the perpetrators are. And as they're climbing, I mean, it's so fun. It's so fun. So, okay, I'll stop gushing about it, but it is like one of my absolute favorite thriller books I've ever read.
Oh,
So I can't
thanks.
help it.
Well, I tried to be thoughtful about how the danger gets worse as you go up, because I figured if it's the opposite way and you get to the top floor and it's just like some mild mannered accountant who's in there for
Yeah,
bank
like it's
fraud, then
forensic crime. Like,
it wouldn't have the same bite to it.
like, all right, well, I guess we're good. I guess we can get on the helicopter now. I don't
Yeah.
know. It kind of reminds me. Did you ever play the game Left 4 Dead?
Oh, that sounds really familiar.
So it's like
Uh,
a zombie game, and you have 4 people, and it's the same way you're kind of saying they're trying to survive, but like they've got to get from one point to a rescue point, and so they're going through all of these things. And at one point, though, they have to climb up through this hospital, and
uh-huh.
it just like as I was reading it, I was like, this reminds me of Left 4 Dead, where they're trying to escape,
Oh, that
and
sounds
the
like my
zombie
kind of
hordes.
game.
But that's not what happens in the Ascent. There's no zombie hordes, but there are worse things.
Yeah, there's some bad dudes in it.
There's some bad dudes in there. All right, so tell me a little bit about Hardtown and Dark Country.
Yeah, so Hardtown is the follow-up to The Ascent. And in it, Kurt Argento, he's the ex-Detroit cop. He is house sitting for a friend of his in a small town in Arizona, and he's approached by a young woman and her son, who are asking for help in finding the woman's missing husband, who's turned up missing in sort of the next town over. And Argento ends up getting kind of drawn into their story, and he goes to that small town, and then he discovers that the woman and her son are now missing. So he starts poking around into why, and then Argento being Argento, a fair amount of mayhem ensues. Um, so yeah, it's got sort of a broader scope than the Ascent, which was kind of confined to
Mm-hmm.
the interior of a prison. You know, Hardtown is more sort of open world, and it has a plot that has uh, sort of higher stakes, and it's a lot of fun to write.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it is. I think it's so interesting to me. Kurt Argento. So he is a former Detroit police officer, as you mentioned, and he kind of went out with like not a great retirement situation. Um,
Right.
so like, can you talk about how you developed Kurt and where you saw his story going from that time where they're in the enclosed prison, and now we're seeing him like moving and doing things now that he's completely he had just been free, like not free from his job, but like just left his job, right? So now he's like on his own and he's like, hey, I'm not a cop anymore.
Right. Yeah. So at the beginning of the Ascent, he uh, gets involved in sort of some bad business on the Detroit Police Department. He's basically given a choice to resign or be fired. Um, he's in a bad space mentally because he's recently lost his wife. So he's trying to kind of figure out his place in the world and what he cares about and why and who is he now that he's not a cop anymore. I think he sort of rediscovers some of that as he goes through the Ascent because he is, in effect, reverting back to a police officer and trying to help some folks out of a bad situation.
Hmm.
And then in Hardtown, um, he is approached by this mom and her child who are asking for help. And, he isn't a private investigator, he's not a detective, but they need help and he's in a position to give it. So his thought process is sort of, well, what am I on this earth to do? There are some things that I'm good at, um, and I want to be useful to people. So he finds himself sort of acting like a cop, even though he isn't anymore. And that's kind of a through line through the books. Like, what am I on this earth to do? If I'm just sitting around doing nothing, like, what am I supposed to be doing? And that's the question he has to ask himself.
Yeah, I could see this being a more room to explore that those parts about him. With the Ascent, it's like it's kind of just like urgent. You're like right in it, but having a little bit of space to say, what am I doing? And going from being in the Midwest down to Arizona, like that's a big
Yeah,
change as well.
yeah. And one of the things he has to navigate is, I mean, he's a violent person. He's sort of, for lack of a better word, good at violence.
Hmm.
And the books are violent, but I try to be thoughtful about that. I think that um, if I'm writing the books right, the violence is necessary to the story. It sort of propels the story. I can do some of it off the page, and I do sometimes. But he gets sort of thoughtful about that. I mean, I think that if your main character shoots six people, even if they're bad guys, and then just sort of shrugs and smokes a cigarette, well, I don't know. I think I want a little more moral
What's that? Is that
reflection.
John Wick? John Wick's just like, yeah,
Well, I
big
love
deal.
John Wick. I'm not gonna, but so I think I try to make the violence of the book sort of have weight to it and have a cost both for Argento and for the people he interacts with.
Yeah. Um, so when you're developing your story, which comes first for you, the character or the plot? Now, remember, I know you have a series, so you've got your character, but like, can we talk about when you started writing versus now that you're several books in, and kind of where you're like, how are you developing this as a series?
Yeah, so my goal is to come up with a story that I run through my head and think, oh, um, you know, there aren't any sort of completely fresh story ideas anymore. But
Yeah.
if I can put sort of my own twist on it, um, and hopefully have it be something that's a little surprising to the reader, then I'll kind of pull on those threads. And then ideally, I try to make the story such that as Argento moves his way through it, he's he's changed a little bit. He's not maybe the same person that he was at the beginning of the story as the end, just because I think try to avoid sort of the static character.
Yeah.
But the the thing about Hardtown was it's more of a mystery than the Ascent, and the
Mhm.
mystery in Hardtown is there's this bad guy in the small town in Arizona who's up to something, and it's big, and it may have sort of global implications. Which, by the way, I love that I tried to write a book that has global implications. But
From small town Arizona, even because
yeah,
I literally grew up in small town. My town with like had 1,800 people in it that I grew up in Arizona. So I find this hilarious.
but yeah. So yeah, I think I lost the thread of what I was just saying.
Oh, you were saying that he was. Oh, dang it! I lost it too. I was just there. So he has gone to. He was in Detroit. He went there. Well, we both
Yes.
lost it. So this is fun. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for editing this out. Appreciate that.
No, let's keep it in, warts and all.
Oh, yeah, perfect. This is what it's
Um,
like to actually come on my show is I forget what we're talking about halfway through most of the
well, it's my
time.
job to remember what I'm talking
It
about, not
was your
yours.
job to remember, not my job to remember. I've got like my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just, you know what? I'm a middle-aged man doing his best.
You're
That's
doing great. You're doing great. Okay, so like he's now in the middle. He's in a small town in Arizona with there's a man that's there. It's a mystery,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry. That's
it's like has global implications. I got
yeah.
there.
So I think what I was getting at was so there's a mystery in Hardtown. There wasn't really a mystery in the sense so much,
Hmm.
but the mystery in Hardtown is what is this guy up to in this small town, Arizona, and the whole book kind of leads to that, and it's more revealed at the end. And man, I put a lot of work into that. I think that one of the hardest things, at least for me, is to have a book that has at least a big twist at the end or a big reveal at the end.
Hmm.
I so admire authors that can do that, the Harlan Cobens of the world,
Hmm.
who have sort of that earned twist or reveal at the end. So that's what I have in Hardtown, and I try to do the same thing in Dark Country, which is this a good time to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about
Okay.
it.
So in Dark Country, Argento is has relocated to a small town in South Dakota, and he is acting as just a church handyman. And he encounters a 17-year-old uh, kid from the local high school. He's a Syrian refugee, and he is on the run from a couple of uh, really bad actors. Um, but he doesn't know why. He doesn't know why these people are after him. And Argento doesn't know that either. And there comes a point where they have to hit the road together to protect this kid. And then um, the main question in that book is okay, someone very rich and powerful wants this kid, either what he knows or what he's carrying, and will kill to get it. And and what is that? What is that thing? So I thought of that plot idea and I thought, that's it's kind of cool. Let's run with that.
Yeah,
So if I if my middle-aged brain latches on to an idea that seems sort of cool, I just kind of
it just kind
unpack
of
it and
develops.
see if I can make it cook.
Yeah, yeah. So Kurt's just kind of like floating through life right now a little bit. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah, he's a bit of a wanderer. Um,
I feel like I get kind of like Frankie Elkin vibes from him in the sense that Frankie Elkin is the main character in one of Lisa Gardner's series where she like finds missing people and just like kind of floats all around and is in Hawaii one year and when in mountains one other year. So kind of like it kind of has that sort of vibe, which I really think is interesting and such a great way as an author to be able to tell broader and bigger stories than just like we're all in one city and we're like completing the cases that come in, right?
yeah, it does give you sort of freedom to do that and explore new places. Sort of the wandering do-gooder. That's a pretty irresistible character, at least in my book. So it's fun to play with that. And
Yeah,
Lisa Gardner rules, by the way.
I
She
know.
she is so gracious, especially to new authors. She and Greg Hurwitz are really instrumental at Thriller Fest, and they have this basically they host this gathering for debut authors where they just sit in a room with them and answer any questions they might have. I
Yeah.
mean, these are sort of industry professionals
Leaders.
and
Yeah.
very well established who just are very generous with their time. So I really appreciate folks like her.
Yeah, I agree. Plug for Thriller Fest. Huge fan. Definitely
Yeah,
recommend going. And if you're not published yet, you should go because you're going to learn how to do it. You're going to network. You're going to meet people. If you are published, it's your first year. You should be a part of the debut author program because that's amazing. That's what Adam's talking about. And it's the best. It's my favorite week of the year.
it's a good hang.
Yeah. Um, okay, so what kind of research did you have to do for Hardtown? Like, did you go to Arizona? You've spent much time there because you're in Northern California, right?
Yeah, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. So my wife lived in Tucson for a time, and
Okay.
we're fond of the desert. I've got a good friend in Phoenix, so we've been there several times, and so I feel like I know the geography. Um, in terms of research, there are one of the things that I thought was kind of cool about Hardtown was um, I ended up reaching out to a number of like subject matter experts
Hmm.
in various disciplines. So I reached out to a desert survival expert because
Ooh,
there's a point in the book where Argento is sort of marooned in the desert and has to sort of battle his way out.
that is
Uh,
not an easy experience
no,
to
it's
get
tough.
through.
Everything in the desert wants to kill you.
Okay, sorry. I just moved back to Seattle from Arizona for the last couple years, and this is all I say all the time. Literally everything in Arizona wants to kill you. The
Yeah,
flora, the fauna, the environment, like the people, everything wants to kill you in Arizona. You have to be hard as F to live there.
yeah. I mean, usually like maybe the flora will come after you, but the fauna will leave you alone. But in Arizona, it's flora and fauna.
Yeah, it's both. Yeah.
They're
No,
both
you're
coming.
walking by jumping cactuses, you walk by and they jump at you. Like literally everything is trying to kill you.
Just as a brief aside, my daughter was in near Phoenix for a sort of a family girls weekend recently, and she was taking some pictures, and she just reached her arm out casually right onto a cactus. So she's got spines coming out of
Yep.
her.
Yep.
Uh,
It
the
just
desert's no joke. It'll
no. No,
it'll
it's
get you.
fine. I think to me it's such an amazing spot for a thriller or like a mystery. It's such an interesting environment. Um and I think too, like unless you've actually been to to the desert, I don't think it like really clicks for people of how like difficult and how hard it is to be there. Like it
Yeah,
is you have to be tough to live there because it is a tough environment. Yeah. And so it's so great
yeah.
for a thriller.
There's an author that who's a friend of mine that I like, a guy named Joe Clifford, who I was listening to him do a book talk once, and he said if you're an author and you're writing about a place and you haven't been there, the reader will always know.
They will know.
So
Yeah.
I try to, as best I can, actually be in the spots I'm writing
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But for Hardtown, there's a couple other folks I reached out to. Um, a burn doctor who could walk me through some of the medical terminology. I've got a buddy on the SFPD who's a sniper,
Ooh.
so I reached out to him. Um, just I think people like it when you approach them about their specialty because they like talking about it. And yeah, they're very, very generous with their time. So I gave them all a shout out in the book's acknowledgments.
Yeah. That's fantastic and good to know because maybe I want to find that desert survivor guy for a
Oh yeah,
question.
yeah, he was good stuff. And then I
um
sent them all a copy of the book. It's the
yeah,
least I
yeah.
could do.
So, your first book was really like kind of action-driven thriller, and you said like this book, Hardtown and Dark Country, are more mystery. What's that experience like for you writing mystery versus thriller? Because I'm sure it's like slightly different of a mentality.
Yeah, I think the challenge, and it's a challenge I enjoy, but it's definitely a challenge. The challenge with writing the mystery is um, when the mystery is revealed or the the twist is revealed, it has to be earned, right? Like the reader has to nod and say, "Of course." And in
Yeah.
order to get that right, I think you have to leave a few breadcrumbs, but it can't be too obvious,
Hmm.
um, and also you can't be too sort of sneaky or vague about it. So getting that balance right, um, that can be tough, and that's something that my literary agent, uh, who used to be an editor herself, has helped me with, and my editor. Um, you know, it, it's my names on these books, but man, I have some really smart people that are helping
Oh
me. So
yeah.
I so appreciate them. It's nice to be part of a team.
Yeah. It definitely is like it's a team effort to get these books out. They don't happen in a vacuum. Um, what do was there anything that you've learned from your editor or your agent about plotting a mystery or putting in those breadcrumbs that you think was like this is like, oh God, I get it now. Like something that clicked.
Yeah, there is actually in Dark Country, um, I have sort of a reveal at the end that I thought I had pointed to rather cleverly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my beta readers, plus my agent, plus my editor, uh, none of them got it.
Nope, nope. They need
So
they
I
needed some
realized,
work.
wait a second, I don't think it's them. I think it's me. I think I was trying to be too clever. I think I needed to sort of recalibrate myself. So that, I mean, that's the kind of feedback that you like in your own head. You might think, oh yeah, fiendishly clever, but
Yeah.
that's why you have to get outside of your own head and put the book out into the world and get some good feedback. So
I agree with you, and that's one of the things I actually it's something I tout to my book coaching clients all the time is that um one, like you're in charge of your book, and two, if multiple people are saying something, it's the thing to look at. Like you get to choose what feedback you want to look at, but if multiple people are saying like I don't get it, then you got to work some work to do.
yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And
Um
there's
oh, go ahead.
another author who I I'm forgetting who this was, but they basically said if multiple people are telling you to fix something, you probably need to fix it. If they're telling you how to fix it, maybe don't listen to that as
Yeah.
much. Now
No.
that's on you, but if they're all pointing to the same
There's like
thing,
this is not working. I don't
take a
understand
hard
this,
look
or I'm
at that.
confused by this or whatever. That's the thing that you're like, okay, I do need to spend some time trying to figure out like how do I make this clearer, or put the twist in more, or is it too obvious or whatever that thing is. um that's the sign when you have multiple people saying it. Outside of
Yeah,
that, like you should be using your own discernment.
yeah,
That's what
because
the
it's your
writer
book
brain
at the end of
is.
the day. But
What was the most fun part of this book to write, of Hardtown?
uh, I think it was um, there in Hardtown. There's a group of sort of heavies who are ex-military, um, and kind of writing about their interactions with each other and their culture and how they kind of bounce off Argento. I mean, the cop and military cultures have some similarities,
Hmm.
um, but uh, they are very uh, sort of dialed in, dangerous group, and Argento is essentially going up against them by himself. He doesn't have any help really in
Hmm.
Hardtown.
There's no backup anymore.
Yeah, he's his own backup. So trying
Yeah.
to make that realistic, like how does one guy, even if he's a competent, former SWAT cop in Detroit, how does he sort of defeat a group of highly trained soldiers and have that be realistic? I mean, that's a tall order. It was a lot of fun to try to sort of figure that out and work through that.
Did his dog help? Is that his backup? That's what I got excited about. I was like, I remember the dog.
Hudson is his best pal.
Oh my God. That was though so stressful when I was reading The Ascent, because I haven't finished Hardtown yet. But when I was reading The Ascent, and I was like, what's gonna happen to the dog?
Yeah, I so I have in the book Hudson Argento's dog is a Chow Shepherd. I have a full Chow
Oh
named
yeah.
Ziggy, so he's the inspiration for for Hudson, and he's actually sitting right next to me right now.
He's like, Dad, I
There's a
got you.
decent chance that he might bark loudly before this podcast is over, because if there's a car that pulls across the street, even if it's just a neighbor, he's ever vigilant and he's looking out the window and
Aw,
alerting me to
what a good
potential
little guard
danger.
dog.
He's the best. So yeah,
So what did you find was the most challenging part of this story to write? And how'd you work through that?
yeah, I think recognizing that, for instance, I've been a cop for 24 years now. I know how cops sort of act and think, but recognizing, for instance, that Argento, there, as I had mentioned, I reached out to a sniper friend of mine on the SFPD. Like, I don't have that knowledge, so reaching out to someone else who did have it, and then uh, there's, hmm, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there is a part of the book that gets a little scientific,
Okay.
um, that I definitely had to reach out to the subject matter expert for, because I'm not strong in the sciences. I think
Yeah.
I got a D on my physics final as a senior
And
in
you're
high
like,
school.
why? Why am I writing a story with science in it?
So
That's
I
making my life
I needed a
harder.
lot of help with that just to make the words sound right. So that was tough. But again, reached out to some folks that were super helpful and kind of walked me through where I needed to get. So,
How was it writing your second and third books versus your debut?
boy, I think I have a writer friend of mine, Nick Petrie, who writes the Peter Ash books. Good guy, great books, and
Yeah.
he had, he's been very helpful to me um, with writing advice over the years. And he said, with your second book, you can kind of get in your own head a little bit, because you realize people are actually going to read this.
Yeah.
Like, I have a contract for it; it's going to be published. Like, you don't have that with your first book, so I think I don't know. I think maybe the tendency is to put some pressure on yourself. Uh, but I wanted the second book to kind of go to some places that the first book didn't. I sort of gave myself permission to write a book that maybe wasn't going to exactly conform to readers' expectations. I take a few chances
Mm-hmm.
in the book. Um, there's sort of this expression, like, when you're writing a series, each successive entry has to be the same but different. Like, you have to show the
Yeah.
reader something else. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I worked hard at that to not just have it be sort of the ascent to,
Right.
ascentier.
Yeah.
Uh,
A sentier.
yeah.
Well, I mean, like, I find it interesting. Like, what happens after you go through that insanity? Like, then how do you move? You're like, oh, I'm just moving on with my life now.
Yeah.
Like, what? Well, what
Yeah.
do you hope readers walk away from this book feeling?
Well, if I've done my job right, um, they come away reading a sort of a satisfying thriller where the character isn't the same at the end as he was during the beginning. Um, a book that, even if the plot uh, is gets kind of revved up and a lot of sort of madcap stuff happens, that there's still sort of a skeleton of realism to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess just a character that they can root for, and that they understand, even if sometimes he might make decisions that they might not necessarily agree with.
Mm-hmm.
If those decisions are made within the confines of his own character, they can say, "Okay, yeah, I get it."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess stuff like that.
Yeah. I love that. So moving on a little bit to talk about craft. So tell me, why do you write? I mean, I feel like I know the answer to this, but why do you write the dark and twisted? What drew you to this genre versus any other?
Uh, I have always been fond of books about tough guys.
Yeah.
And tough guys. I mean, that I would sort of expand that to just tough, competent protagonists, whether they're like Spencer from the Robert B. Parker
Hmm.
series, or even like Harlan Coben's standalones, where a housewife becomes an intrepid investigator out of necessity when her husband goes missing.
Yeah.
I like it when it's sort of one person against against the system, um, and they have to just sort of figure it out, whether it's through their training or just through grit or determination. I love those stories, so that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to write.
And this genre really gives you a lot of opportunity for that because it's like it's a high conflict genre, right? Like internal and external.
It
Um,
is,
yeah.
yeah. And the other thing I wanted to do was just the my books aren't police procedurals. They're not set in a precinct, but
Hmm.
the main character is a cop, and I can use a lot of the stuff that I know and have learned as a police officer to sort of inform uh, the book. So I like doing that, and sometimes
Yeah.
it kind of feels like a shortcut or even a cheat. Like I'll see or
Just
hear like,
lucky.
well, I'll see or hear like a wanted felon say something, and I think, oh, that would be good in a book. So I just take it and drop it in. There's no research. That was my Tuesday morning.
Yeah, like just a regular day. Heard this
Yeah,
great line that this criminal said. I mean,
there
that's
was
what my
another.
guess is. Like, it's probably fairly easy because you're already in you're exposed to crime all the time. You're exposed to the justice system and law enforcement and all of these things. So, and our like mystery thrillers tend to like be crime driven, crime fiction.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
another example that was I was a patrol sergeant, and an officer reported to me that the prisoner that we had at the hospital had tried to escape. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What did he try to do? And the cop said he saw this guy hook his leg around the little rolling uh, cart that has the portable thermometer, and he is able to unhook the thermometer end with his free hand and use the tip of the thermometer to pick his handcuff open. The cop, like watched him do this. He's like, "What is this guy doing?" And then the guy sprung his cuff and stood up, and the cop was able to get him back into custody.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, that's fantastic. So I just took that and dropped it into a book.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I really say like the truth is stranger than fiction, and that is so true. Like what we can get from real life.
Yeah.
Um so as you have been learning, you're 3 books in now, if you could teach a new writer one thing, what would it be, and can you teach it to me right now?
Oh boy, I feel a little funny trying to teach anyone anything. I still feel like I'm kind of at the starting line. But one thing I've tried to do as an author, just be sort of a good student of the game. So I will read stuff that other writers write about the craft of writing, like Stephen King on writing.
Hmm.
And I have like this big Microsoft Word document that I just put stuff in, just bullet points on writing. Um, and one of the things that struck me recently is, I think actually Stephen King talks about this. You know, you don't have to tie yourself in knots describing characters. You don't have to describe their hair and their outfit and their height and their weight.
Hmm.
And one example of that is in the book Carrie. King describes Carrie as a high school girl with sort of a bad complexion and a thrift store wardrobe.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
That
Yeah.
is absolutely it. I think a few details can go a long way. So I
And
don't
they're
know. I've tried to.
details that are more about not about the appearance. It's when you see somebody, what are all the things that you're kind of taking in about them? It's the presence. It's the like, what are the key things that make them who they are versus like the eye color. And, I mean, I guess if that's important to the story, but
Yeah, and I mean there are some exceptions to that. Like if Argento is going into a situation where he might be fighting with somebody, he's gonna be sort of laser focused on their height and their
yeah.
weight and how they position themselves, and it looks like they have a trained fighting skill. But other than that, I think a little goes a long way, and it's sort of in conjunction with that. One of the things I tried to do in the Ascent is, there are chapters that are written from another character's point of view. So, for instance, the governor's daughter that you had mentioned,
Hmm.
she has her own POV chapters. So I don't always have to describe uh, Argento through Argento's eyes. I can sometimes describe him through Julie, the governor's daughter's eyes.
Hmm.
So how she perceives him, and then that's just another vantage point on a character and sort of a window into their world. So it doesn't have to just be sort of a big description dump. You
Yeah.
can kind of spread it out through chapters from different people's perspectives, and I don't know. I think that kind of lets it breathe a little more.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really interesting too. I think a really good example of that is in My Darling Husband by Kimberly Bell. We see it's about a home invasion. And so the mom is there with her kids and she's in the home invasion. And there's like point of view from her, one of the perpetrators, like her husband who's not there, and one of the kids. And so being in her head, we see like all the things she's thinking. And then we get to see the other chapter of how she's behaving, which I feel like is
Hmm.
such an interesting thing because what she's thinking and how she's behaving aren't congruent because she's being a mom. Like she's like, I've got to be like this or whatever. And so I felt like that was like such an interesting way of being able to learn about a character and how they present themselves versus how they feel internally. Um,
Yeah. What was the name of that? I'm going to write that down. What's the name of that book?
My Darling Husband
Okay.
by Kimberly Bell. It's a fantastic book as well.
I'm always looking for good reads.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
Thank you
one
for
of
that.
the ones that, like, stand out to me the most because it's first person
Okay.
in her head, and then seeing, like, how she acts and, like yeah, anyway, so it's a fascinating I recommend it to everyone who's looking for POV information or, like, how to, um, describe a character or give them more. Okay, so moving on to your specific topic, let's talk about writing realistic police. And my first question is, what do you see often that you hate? And my second question is, what are you trying to make sure doesn't end up in your books?
Oh boy, there's so much of it.
I'm sure that there's so much. And like, do we really have to describe the guns or can we just say handgun? Like, is it really important to be like, this is an H&K, blah, 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 blah?
I mean, I guess it depends what kind of book you're writing. I mean, if you're Jack Carr and you're writing about, a former Navy SEAL who's going
Then
into
yes, it's important.
then you want to talk about the gun and not just the gun, but the optics and the night sights and.
Hmm.
But I'm sort of a less is more uh, person. But I guess and I say this with the understanding that if you adhere directly to actual police procedure, your book might be a little boring,
Yeah. It's a lot
right?
of
Because if
paperwork,
you're
right?
if your main character is a detective and they crack the big case and it's a violent suspect, they're not going to go grab the suspect themselves. They're going to call the SWAT team, and some anonymous SWAT team is going to make your arrest, and your main character just going to be in the car waiting for the house to be cleared, and
Yeah.
that's not any fun.
That's not
So
fun. That's not
no,
exciting.
so I
Well, you
think you
did
could
all the work and you don't even get to like have the climactic moment of the arrest.
right. So I think I don't think you have to be a slave to police procedure, but sometimes there's just sort of mistakes that are pretty easy to avoid and they don't really interfere with the plot. I mean, I guess just one example that I see in books and on TV is the cop will arrest someone and immediately read them their Miranda rights.
Hmm.
And you don't have to do that. In fact, it's smart not to do that because you don't have to Mirandize someone until they are in custody and you've started interrogating them about the
Mm.
crime that is of concern. So that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's how we all know our Miranda rights now, let's be honest.
I know.
It's because of TV books.
Um, let's see what else with police stuff. I think you know again, kind of going back to the lone hero, like we don't really make arrests by ourselves. A lot of times in books, there's no time for backup. Like I got to go in by myself, and there's always time for backup.
It's
So
always time for
if you're if you're going to kind of write that book, I guess I would just recommend saying, think of some way that puts an extra layer of realism on that scene. Maybe uh, maybe communications are down, or maybe the bulk of the force is tied up across town with some big fire or riot, or you got to think of
there's some
something.
reason they have to go
Yeah, it
in,
doesn't
and
have
it's
to be the
not
best reason,
there's no
just
time. It's like
something.
no one's here. Like there's
Yeah.
nobody available. You are or maybe what if you're like in the middle of the woods and like your backup is 30 minutes away?
Yeah, something like that. There's a author, Brad Meltzer, talks about arming your fiction with reality, which I
Mhm.
always like. I always like that
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
I think you should try to do that. Try to do that whenever you can.
Yeah. I love that. That is really that's such a great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna move to the next section where we this is what I call quote unquote rapid fire, but it's not. So it's just my 10 questions I ask everybody.
Okay.
um and so yeah, let's just jump right into it. What is on your desk when you're writing?
Um, Coffee cup. That's that's the main thing. I feel like I find it hard to write without coffee.
Yeah.
I think Lee Child writes a Jack Reacher series. I think he's putting down like 9 or 10 cups a day. I'm not quite up to that level, but just kind of fuel for the machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so where do you write? Do you have a desk or do you write someplace like wherever you write? Do you write in your vehicle like when you're on patrol? When you're like,
Uh,
I don't have any calls.
no, I make sure to keep the writing
I was gonna
stuff
say that's
separate from my
probably
work
not
stuff.
really very kosher to do.
So I actually do most of my writing right where I am right now. This is our dining room table, but I try to find little pockets to write here and there. So if I'm waiting to pick up my daughter from soccer practice, I have my laptop with me and I'll try to pound out half a chapter. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, wherever I can.
Yeah. Okay. What ritual, if any, do you have before or after you write?
Ritual. I don't really have any rituals. I could use a ritual. What do you got? What do you got for ritual?
What do I got?
Maybe I'll
So
just copy yours.
well, I don't know that that's gonna work. I have this sweatshirt, very like it says "right on." So I will put my writing sweatshirt on so that I
Oh, I
know like
like that. You got a writing sweatshirt.
yeah, it's specifically writing time. Sometimes I'll light a candle. I also have to have coffee. Um, but that's like if I'm really getting into like a deep session. But the rest of the time, it's usually like I try to put the writing sweatshirt on rather no matter like what I'm doing. And sometimes it's just like you're on your phone and you're walking and you're like on a walk and you have an idea and so you just write then. But when I'm actually like trying to do like a sit down, spend time, I also do there's a there's some organizations that are out there that can help with body doubling. So I have ADHD, and body doubling is a technique that's done that helps people with ADHD to focus. Because whatever
Oh, okay.
reason, our brains, when someone else is working, our brain wants to work too. Like it's, oh, okay, I can focus now. And so I'll use things like different organizations. There's tons of them that are out there and I can't remember the names of all of them. One of them is called Cave Day, but there's other ones as well. But basically you just like sign up and you book time and you body double with somebody and you don't talk to them. You're just like on camera together and you both just do your thing, whatever that practice is.
Huh.
And that helps me a lot too. Especially because I'm such a people person. So this is such a solo thing that
Yeah.
I struggle, but having that other person, just even if they're on the screen, just helps.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of a dedicated writing garment. I might
Yeah.
look
It's
into
like,
that.
all right, it's time. I got my sweatshirt on. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
It's writing
Just
time.
sort of recalibrate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Lock
some
in.
people do it like some people have a candle that they light. Some people put headphones on. Some people pull a tarot card. Like there's all different kinds of things that people do as rituals. So that's why I find it such an interesting like question, because how we get into it. Like I remember Bob Dugoni talking about like years ago at Thriller Fest. He was talking about when he wrote Sam Hell. I don't remember what the rest of the book is called, but he was like, yeah, I just was like sitting in my office. I lit a candle and like I had the lights off and I was drinking a glass of wine. I was just waiting for a character to show up. And I was like, that is an intense ritual.
Yeah, that's a lot. Good for
But it
him.
really stood out to me. And I was like, that's so cool.
Well, I'm open to that. I'm open to.
Yeah. So if you are writing POV or multiple timeline, do you write straight through like a reader would read it, or do you write each section and weave things together?
I usually write straight through. That just seems to help me keep things in order. And by the way, authors who write multiple timelines, God bless them. I find that hard to
Yeah.
keep track of.
It is hard to keep track of. I would agree with you. I've done it for like one of my books that are in the drawer where but I wrote that character's POV all the way straight through because it was a different timeline. And then I was like, so now I know what happened. So then I can write the mystery. Like what happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. What is the most bullshit piece of advice you've heard?
What a great question.
Because there's so much of it.
Bullshit advice. I think there's sort of a variation on this, but they talk about how in a novel the story is the meal and the dialogue is just the salt.
Oh, I've
Uh,
never heard this.
yeah, I think it's. I want to say Dennis Lehane
Okay. Okay.
said that. By the way, I
Yeah, but
will
he's an
read
incredible writer.
everything
So
that
like,
guy
what the hell
writes.
do I know?
And it's not that that's bad advice. That's terrific advice. But I think uh, Dennis Lehane also talks about The Friends of Eddie Coyle being a book where the dialogue is the meal
Mm,
because it's so dialogue heavy. And I kind of, I'm probably not exactly answering your question, but I've given myself permission to write more sort of dialogue heavy books than sort of concentrate on exposition and describe everything that a character sees when they walk into a room. Describe the lamp and the table and the blinds and the carpet.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of where I'm
that's
at with
such an interesting. I really like that. I think that's something I kind of want to mull over a little bit because the dialogue is one of the things that like my personal struggles are dialogue in that I know my characters, I get all the things, and then I get in there and they're in the scene and I'm like, okay, and then what are they gonna say?
Yeah.
So, well, what are they saying? And
I,
so I think that's really interesting to think about it. Is like the story is the meal, and but then it's the flavor. But also sometimes you can do just like dialogue heavy, and that works really well. That's how you still get to
yeah.
know the characters, which is also kind of reminds me. So Janice Hallett, have you ever read anything from Janice Hallett?
Mm-mm.
So she wrote The Appeal, and so she's got like a bunch of books now, but it's entirely written in multimedia. And it is emails, post-it notes, voice messages, things
Oh
like that.
wow.
Like there is none of that arc or that background, the story setting, or like there is some, but like it's not traditional in any way. And you still get a character arc, you still get a mystery in it. It's so
Oh,
fascinating. Yeah.
never even heard of that approach. That's pretty novel.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So
Good
highly
for her.
recommend that too if you're looking for like different ways that you can tell stories that are more than the traditional. I walked into a room and there was the table and there was the lamp and there
Yeah.
was
Can I ask you that same question? What do you think is like the biggest bullshit bit of advice that you've heard on writing?
Okay. This is good because I hear lots of advice. Personally, I think show don't tell is the biggest bullshit piece of advice because it doesn't do anything. You know what it does? It tells you. It does the opposite of what you're trying to
Yeah,
do.
well, that's sort of ironic, isn't it?
It's so like show don't tell. Well, that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
don't tell what? Show don't tell the character? Show don't tell what they're thinking? Show don't tell the room? Show like what does that mean? So that's mine. It's my favorite one.
I like that. I think I've heard other people say it's more like show and tell. It's
Yeah.
not show don't tell. Show and tell.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes I've said this before. I think I had a conversation with JT Ellison one time. She was like, "Sometimes you just need a good tell," and I was like, "I know." And the thing
Yeah.
is, for new writers, they're like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to tell anything," so then I'm showing every emotion, every they're walking across the room. I'm showing that like it's a thing to try to discern what that actually means, and it sounds like it's simple advice, but it's really not clear.
hmm Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. What is the best piece of advice you've heard?
One bit of advice that I really like um, is an author who said it's really sort of basic and stripped down, but write without fear.
I love
So
that.
if you have a story to tell, even if you don't, maybe you're wondering how commercially viable it is, or maybe if you're wondering, does this break some of the rules of writing? The sort of the best stories are sort of the boldest ones.
Hmm.
Maybe like the author you're just talking about who wrote a book with emails and post-its. I mean,
Hmm.
that's writing without fear.
That is definitely
I
writing
like that
without
advice.
fear. Like
Yeah,
how she pulls off a character arc. I cannot like how, how?
it's a
It's so
magic trick.
amazing. Yeah. Okay. I love that. I love writing without fear. I think that that's super important as well. And if you think about what your point, like some of the boldest stories, so like Gone Girl broke all of the rules, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what is the darkest idea that you've had that has scared you about yourself?
Oh, hmm. Well, there's a point in the book The Ascent where some crazed inmates turn a guard into a human canoe.
Guys, this book is bonkers. People have
That
to read it. It's so good.
that got pretty dark. I don't know where I
It got
came up with
pretty
that.
dark.
Sort of troubling, but here we are.
Where did that come from? You
I
might need
don't
some
know.
therapy.
I don't can't speak to that, but it's in the book and
Yeah, it
people
works.
tend to remember it.
They remember it. Okay, how many drafts do you do before you share with anybody?
Hmm. I would say several. I want to try to get into a workable spot before I give it to some of my beta readers, because if it's too sort of formless, um, I don't know, it just doesn't work. I want to try to make it as close. I want to try to write sort of the best draft that I can, just to give them the most to work with. So, and
Yeah.
sometimes that takes a while.
Yeah. Okay. What part of the process is your favorite and what part is your least favorite?
Hmm. I usually know how the book's going to start and how it's going to end, and it's just a matter of filling in that tricky
That
middle.
middle. Oh my God.
And you want to make sure it's not mushy.
Hmm.
Avoid the mushy middle.
Yeah, it's
That's the toughest
hard.
part for me. Yeah.
Yeah. That part it's really hard because it's like it's where the bulk of the story happens and that's the hardest like how do you get from point A to point A to point Z? We got like the whole alphabet in between. What's that look like? And you got to be able to do all the ups and downs and the roller coaster and the everything. And then
Yeah.
also enough to like build out that it makes sense that it's a full story, that it's not like, oh, well, why don't you just call the police? Like story done.
Right. That's it. Yeah. And you want it to be essential to the book. You don't want it to be padding. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll write a chapter and I think, this feels like padding. So then
Hmm.
just try to winnow it down and make it lean.
Yeah. But in your first draft, you got to get all that stuff out, right? Like that's kind
You
of
do.
that's one of the things that I have learned is like it's rough. That first draft is so painful sometimes to get out. But if you don't put all of it and then or whatever, like you've got to work through stuff and sometimes see if is it padding, is it work or not?
Yeah, I think maybe part of it is just you give yourself permission to write sort of a shitty first draft.
Yeah. Yeah. No one has to see it. And
That's
then
right.
finally, what is your old school favorite mystery or thriller? Maybe something you read when you were a kid or in college, or like you're like, oh my God, when I think about mysteries and thrillers, it's this book.
I just went back and reread the Agatha Christie book, and then there were none,
Mm-hmm.
which is just delightful. I
Yeah.
mean, the irresistible hook of people keep dying, and you're trying to figure out who done it. And I remember reading it as a kid and just marveling at it, and then it was just so fun to go back and revisit it.
Yeah.
Some of those old stories really just have a lot of staying power.
Well, that's why it's a classic. It's classic for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today, Adam. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on the old Twitter, which is now X. Um, I am on Instagram, but my teenage daughters claim I'm not doing it right, so I don't.
You're doing
I don't know
better
if
than you were, which was none at all. So you've
I don't know if
already made some improvements. And I was like,
I'm the
okay,
best.
look at these posts. They're pretty decent.
Pretty decent. It's high praise for me.
Yeah.
And then yeah, that's pretty much it. I have a website. Although the last podcast I was on, they asked me what the address for my website was, and I couldn't remember if it was Adam Plantinga or Adam.Plantinga.com or org, or so. I don't. If someone just Googles my name, it'd probably come up.
I'll help you. It's adamplantiga.com.
All right, and that's about it. Sometimes I show up
Clearly,
at
you set
book
that up.
conferences. I don't know. I'm here. I'm there.
You're here and there.
Yeah.
Well, that is fantastic. And if you do go to Thriller Fest, I recommend trying to seek out Adam. You'll know because he's like the most giant person in the room with a bright orange shirt. So,
It's right. I had my bright orange. I was security for the
yes,
event. Yeah,
security.
I brooked no nonsense.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Where he like, I don't know how tall you are. I'm 5'1", and I was security. There's
You know,
Adam.
not since Hall and Oates was there such a team.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you are interested, you can find me on Instagram at Sabrina Thatcher Author. And if you want more information about my book coaching services, visit crimeandquill.com. Until next time, friends, stay sharp and right twisted.